Hey guys, Dr. Daryl Gioffre here. How's it going? Here we are, January 11th into the new year, and now's a great time to check in with yourself. January 1 comes after a crazy, stressful, probably the most stressful year we've ever had since I've been alive. I'm 45 right now. You probably feel the same way with the pandemic, and then obviously we had the elections, and then we had the holidays. It was like the perfect storm. But here's what's interesting about this time of year. January 15th, just a few days from now, the research shows that 92% of us who made New Year's resolutions are going to fail. 92%. How crazy is that? Now, the question is why is that? Now, resolutions alone is just something I don't believe in because you got to resolve every day to make changes, right? We can't wait for January 1 come, and then by the 15th, we're done. And that's it for the rest of the year. Then we do this again. It becomes the vicious cycle. But it's not just a vicious cycle because each year you're stacking on top of everything, all of that stress and stress eating. Because think about this, when you're stressed, right? Mentally, emotionally, physically, what do we tend to reach for in terms of the foods that we go after? It's not a salad, I can tell you that. It's sugar. It's what we call comfort food, right? But here's the thing. I think this is the irony in this whole thing about comfort food is that it's not comforting at all. It doesn't comfort your body. Maybe in that moment, that instant moment, maybe you get a little comfort because of what it does to the dopamine levels, right? We know that sugar is 8 times more addictive than cocaine and heroin because of what it does, lighting up the dopamine receptors in the brain. So you get that little feel good emotion there for the time being, but then you crash further and then you need more of it. And that's what happens with every single day. We wake up tired, we hit the snooze button a few times, and then we have a cup of coffee or something acidic to try to give us that jolt to get our day going. Now, coffee is acidic too, right? So as long as you turn that cup of coffee into an acid kicking coffee, you're okay. But then what happens is we go to more sugary treats. And that's a definition of someone that's addicted to sugar. And by the way, this was me nearly my entire life. If you can go or can't go 2 or 3 hours without eating, that means you're addicted because the body's craving that sugar. And here's why. Every time you eat sugar, what is your body going to burn and use for its fuel? It's going to use sugar. And then what are you going to crave? It's going to crave sugar. So the whole topic of this video is I want to go over and share with you my strategies of how to take you from stress eating to strength eating and do that in a way that's sustainable because the reality is that when we're stress eating, the average person's eating 17 times a day. Now, I'm not talking about just breakfast, lunch, and dinner. I'm also talking about all of those snacks in between. You're grabbing some chips or some nuts or whatever it might be. But again, the research shows we're eating 17 times a day. And the problem with that is that every time we eat, on that repetitive basis, we're dumping insulin into our blood. And insulin, not only is it called our fat storing hormone, but it's our aging hormone. All right. It's been proven that the more insulin we dump into our blood over the course of our lifetime, the less longevity we're going to have. What that means is that we'll die sooner. All right. And what causes insulin to be dumped into the blood? It's sugar. So we got to get off that sugar eating, sugar craving roller coaster, but it's hard. You can't do it by deprivation. Maybe some people can. I couldn't, for all I know. I went 2 weeks, 2 months, and sometimes even maybe 6 months to 8 months. But I didn't address the underlying reasons and causes of why my body was craving sugar in the first place. Number one on the list, by the way, is a mineral deficiency, especially magnesium. Did you know that your body requires 54 molecules of magnesium to neutralize all of 1 molecule of sugar? So think about that. Every time you're eating sugar, your body needs 54 times that of magnesium to neutralize that. And that's why one of the biggest deficiencies I see in Americans and people throughout the world is a magnesium and mineral deficiency. And that's why the first step in my new book, Get Off Your Sugar, which just launched a week ago, is to remineralize. Because that's the quickest way you're going to get over your cravings. And that's the quickest way to feed your body down to the cellular level and down regulate or lower the inflammation in the body. So what we want to go over today is how to take you from 17 times a day eating towards something called intermittent fasting. And I think where most people have trouble, because intermittent fasting is incredible, by the way, I live my life by this. It's obviously very in vogue. So many people are hearing about it and trying it. But a lot of people are failing because they're not going to it the right way. You can't go from eating 17 times a day to intermittent fasting. It's one extreme to the other. It's just not going to work. And that's why after a week or 2 weeks, people say, oh, it didn't work for me because they gave up. It wasn't getting again down to the true causes of why we have these imbalances in our body. So the irony of the comfort foods, right? The comfort foods is that it may make you feel better in that moment, but it's not comforting your body. It's only adding more stress to your body. It's stressing your energy. It's going to deplete your energy. It's stressing your immune system and your resilience. It's stressing your cardiovascular system. It's stressing your kidneys. It's stressing your brain. That is a key component. Sugar is one of the most toxic chemicals for the brain. And what is things like dementia and Alzheimer's, which is literally exploding in epidemic proportions? The research shows that Alzheimer's parallels inflammation of the brain. And what creates inflammation of the brain? It's sugar, right? Something called glycation. When you have too much sugar in the bloodstream, in the body, and you have too much protein, which, by the way, protein is critical. It's one of the four most important macros, right? So the four macros we have are greens, we have healthy fats, clean protein, and our fiber-rich, slow-burning carbs. And we'll get into those a little bit later. But if you eat too much protein, it actually turns to sugar in your body through the liver via a process called gluconeogenesis. So most Americans are actually consuming 5 times the amount of protein that their body actually needs, and it's turning to sugar. And that's the crazy thing. So imagine you didn't consume any sugar at all. You can absolutely create sugar in the body from too much protein. And I think that's one of the trouble that some people have when they go paleo and keto, because while there are so many powerful benefits to both of those programs, most people consume far too much protein. Research on the paleo diet shows the average person eats 38% protein. You never want to go above 20% because that's when it stimulates the sugar. Well, why do people get so many great results on paleo? Because 80% of paleo is plant-based. And why are plants so powerful and so critical for your health? Because plants are alkalizing. And what does that mean? They're loaded with minerals, high in minerals, and they're low in sugar. And that's the difference between something that's alkaline and something that's acid, acidic, or acid forming to the body. This is such an important point. Things that are alkalizing, high in minerals, high in nutrients, low in sugar. Things that are acidic to the body, high in sugar. They could be high in nutrients or low in nutrients, but the key differentiation is the amount of sugar. And a perfect example of that is something like lemons versus oranges. Now, lemons aren't alkaline. They're alkaline forming to the body because they are a citric acid, right? Same thing with limes. Same thing with grapefruit. So here's the thing. We don't care what these foods do outside of the body. All we care about is what these foods do inside the body once you eat them and once your body metabolizes them. So if I have a cut on my finger here and I squeeze some lemon juice on that, we all know how that's going to feel. It's going to burn. It's not going to feel good. Why? Because lemons are acid. They're citric acid. They have a pH of about 2.4. So the pH scale goes from 0 to 14. So 0 is like pure acid. That's terrible. And 14 is like, that's the other end of the spectrum, the other extreme. That's pure alkaline. And that's not good either. 7's neutral. So the pH of your blood, the most important number that we always talk about, is slightly alkaline at 7.4. And why is that? It's so that the body can transport oxygen. That's why these foods are so important. They're loaded with chlorophyll, which oxygenates our blood. It oxygenates our cells. One of the things I do in my wellness center here in New York City is I do something called live blood cell analysis. I take a drop of blood from the fingertip, we put it under the microscope, we magnify it at 25,000 times. And on a screen, just like I'm talking to you here, we look at your alive blood. It's what we call an epigenetic test. It's been proven now that the genes are not responsible for your health, maybe 5%. Epigenetics, which is above the genes, which is basically how you eat, how you think, how you move, or for some of us, maybe lack thereof, is affecting you down to the cellular level. So that's what this blood testing does. It's incredible. We look at things like leaky gut, inflammation, toxicity, I mean, the whole gamut of this. But again, we can really see the changes that happen when you actually put these strengthening foods into the body, like greens, because they're so powerful. And the same thing with lemons. So now lemons have a pH of about 2.4, which make them very acidic on the scale. But like I said before, it only matters what that food does once you consume that food. So if I squeeze a lemon in some water, right, that takes your water from neutral to much better, right? What would be like acid kicking would be adding some green juices to that, or some green powders to that. But again, adding some lemon juice to that is going to make it alkaline forming. So again, we don't care what it does outside the body. We care what it does inside the body. It's going to burn the cut because that's what the acid does. But once you actually drink that or eat it or consume it, it's going to have high alkalizing effects on the body. It's going to cleanse your blood. It's going to detox your liver and gallbladder. It's going to lower or down-regulate inflammation. It's going to help you lose weight. It's going to clear your mind. It's going to alkalize your body. I mean, the benefits of this type of strength eating, and obviously lemons are a big part of that, are huge. So that's the thing, is that we want to talk about the difference. So lemons, high in minerals, high in water, high in nutrients, low in sugar. Oranges, high in nutrients, high in minerals, high in sugar. So if I'm drinking orange juice, which is the worst thing you can give, and calorie for calorie, it's worse than soda because of the fructose content. Fructose is the most dangerous form of sugar. I talked about before I was leading into it, when sugar and too much protein in the body, it actually meshes together and it causes something called glycation. Glycation are plaques that form in the body, in your blood vessels. They increase your blood pressure, in your kidneys. They cause kidney stones. But the ones we're most concerned about is the brain, because they cause plaquing that leads to dementia and Alzheimer's. And here's the thing. Once you have too much sugar and too much protein, and also unhealthy fats, these omega-6, which are inflammatory fats, those are the fats that kill you. So omega-3s are the good ones, omega-6s are the bad ones. So if there's too much sugar in your body from a stress eating diet and too much protein and or too much unhealthy fat, the sugar clicks with that. And once that happens, guess what, guys? It doesn't get undone. It's like trying to unboil a hard-boiled egg. It's not going to happen. So once that happens, it lands into these different tissues of the body and starts to really cause damaging corrosive effects. So we have to really look at what these different foods are doing when you're eating them. So eating an orange is fine. Why? Because you have all the fiber. The fiber slows down how that sugar is metabolized, but you don't want to have a ton of oranges, right? Maybe one a day would be the most, right? But if you squeeze the orange, then what's happening? You're getting orange juice, which is another way of saying you're getting sugar water. You've taken all the innate goodness that nature put in that orange, you've taken it out, which is the fiber, which helps neutralize the effects of the sugar. And now you have sugary effects, right? Which is going to just drive up the inflammation. But it's not just one orange. How many oranges are in an average glass of orange juice? 5, 10, it depends on where you're getting it from. So now you've gotten like 5 or 10 oranges. Could you imagine trying to eat 10 oranges right now? No, it wouldn't be fun. It would be probably nearly impossible. You can eat one, but you can drink it. And the problem is it's like a sugar tsunami when that enters to the body. So that's how you know the difference of these things, these foods, when you're eating. And here's the reality. When you eat or drink something, it's doing one of two things, and it's as simple as this. It's either cleansing your body or it's clogging your body. It's either increasing energy or it's decreasing energy. It's either boosting immunity or suppressing immunity. It's either lowering inflammation or driving up inflammation. You're either strength eating or you're stress eating. And the goal of this is to help you go from stress eating to strength eating, and doing it in a way that's easy on your body, easy on your mindset, without this deprivation-based approach. Because when you do this, it's going to be a game changer. And, we want to really talk about what the specific types of foods we're going to be doing are. But what I want to first talk about is basically how that shift's going to happen. A lot of people look at these stress eating foods, which sugar's at the top of the list. And why do I call sugar a stress food? Because it's loaded with acid. It's probably the most acidic substance, along with artificial sweeteners that you can put into the body. And the effects of what they do to the body are enormous. And as I said before, there's a stacking effect to that. We call them comfort foods, but they're not comfort foods. They don't comfort the body. They stress the body in the short term, in the long term. So we gotta break that cycle, flip that magnet, as I like to say. So here's how we're gonna do this. If we're eating 17 times a day, and by the way, a lot of people will say grazing is good for you. We should be eating multiple meals a day. Now, there is research that shows that grazing does help metabolism. I'm not going to deny that or refute that. It's absolutely true. But the downside of grazing is way bigger than that small amount of metabolism boosting that you're going to get. And when you go from stress eating to strength eating, and you start to go towards more of this intermittent style lifestyle, you're going to see the metabolism go to a whole nother level that grazing can never even come close to. So that's the ultimate goal. And you got to remember that this is also about diet variation. I mentioned the ketogenic diet. I mentioned the paleo diet. My wife is vegan. There's vegetarian. There's pescatarian. So many different things out there, right? It's almost too confusing. But what the research shows is that what gives the body the most power and the most strength is when you do diet variation. Remember, it's not about eating less, it's about eating less often. That's what intermittent fasting is. But it's also about switching up the foods. Now, my wife is a vegan, but she's a healthy vegan. I coach a lot of vegans. When they first come to me, most of them are the most inflamed people that I see, more so than even meat eaters. Why is that? And I have so much respect for vegans. Again, I married one, right? The reason being is that the definition of being, vegetarian, vegan is that you're just not eating animal protein. Again, I have so much respect for that. However, what a lot of people do, or most of the clients I coach when they come to me, what they do is they stop eating meat, but then they replace it with carbohydrates, right? So I'm really proud of you for making that switch off of meat because, my wife and I have such respect for animals. We do our best. When I eat sustainability, I'll eat fish a few times a month, right? But again, when vegetarians or vegans stop eating animal protein, many times they replace that lack of the diet with carbohydrates and sugar. And again, it ends up really just driving up the inflammation, driving up that omega-6 to omega-3 ratio, which is such an important ratio in the body, which is inflammation versus anti-inflammation. So we got to really switch it up. And, someone like my wife, she eats a very well-rounded meal plan, even as a vegan, always switching up the vegetables and the types of things that she's eating. That diet variation is critical because what the research shows is that what's more important than the diet itself is the variation in the diet. And I think one of the reasons why all these diets like Mediterranean and keto and paleo, and of course, a healthy vegetarian, what's the common denominator? Most of these at the foundational level, it's the plants, it's the plant-based. I think the biggest mistake I see people make when they go keto, and I'm a huge fan of keto, I think it's very powerful when done the right way. The biggest mistake that a lot of people do is that they increase the healthy fats, which is so important. Big fan of that. But what they don't increase is the greens. You need that fiber. You need those greens. You need it for the gut. You need it for the minerals. And what happens is if you drive up the fats and you're not getting enough greens, your gut becomes inflamed. It increases the pathogenesis in the gut, causes something called metabolic endotoxemia, which makes leaky gut, all these toxins leak into the blood and becomes this vicious cycle, the downstream effects of that. So again, diet variation is a critical part of what we're talking about with my lifestyle, the way I help people and teach people. It's not just about eating less. It's about eating less often. It's about switching up the foods. Because here's the reality, guys. Would you ever go to a trainer and do the same exercise every single time? No, you think the trainer's crazy. Like, hey, you're going to switch it up on me? What's going on here? Because in the beginning, just like when you switch diets, you're going to get good results. Doesn't matter if you go from a good diet to a bad diet. Just that change, even if it's worse foods, something probably will shift in the body, but it'll catch up to you in the long run, right? And that's what happens. So if I start exercising, I'm going to notice change right in the beginning. But if I don't change it up, the body will plateau. Now, exercising that way is better than not exercising at all. But we want to maximize. We want to be efficient. I want to get you from A to B as quickly as possible. I want to speed up, accelerate your results here in the new year. And to do that, we got to really switch up the foods. And we'll go into what those 4 macros are. So for going from 17 times a day, if that's you, to something like intermittent fasting, I have a couple rules I like to follow. So number 1, don't deprive yourself and don't go from extreme to the extreme. Like I said before, for some people it works, but it's not going to really be lasting. And the other thing is that most of the time, the way you get there is not a healthy way. So we want to get there the right way by taking out these stress foods and adding in strengthening foods. So let's say I'm eating 17 times a day and there's a bunch of unhealthy snacks in there. The very first thing I want you to do is take the unhealthy snack and swap that for a healthy snack. So let's say you're having some chips. All right, instead of having chips, I'd want to see you have some vegetable sticks with a really good dressing, some hummus, some guacamole. One of my dressings in my new book, Get Off Your Sugar, it's actually called Dr. Daryl's Favorite Dressing because it is the best dressing you'll ever have in your life. I created this recipe years ago. We make this probably 4 times a week and it doesn't last. If your kids are not eating vegetable, you put a vegetable platter out there by itself, they're not going to touch it. You put this bowl of dip out there, that will be gone in 2 seconds. And my kids are proof in the chia pudding, as I like to say. And it's not always easy. We had the advantage of starting our kids when they were born into this lifestyle, all the things that me and Chelsea know. But a lot of times I'll get a child come to coach with me who's 5 or 7. They're addicted to sugar. Most children are having far more sugar than adults. The average child consumes over 30 teaspoons of sugar a day, which is crazy. But again, it's more challenging in that age because, they don't do it based on willpower. If kids don't like it, and if you have kids, you know what I'm talking about, not going to happen. And the research shows it takes about 16 tries to get that child before they actually will try something. So just stick with this, guys. There's a lot, this is a whole nother conversation. There's a lot of great tips that Chelsea and I can give you as far as what we do with our children to make them strength eat, to make them eat alkaline, right? Alkalize their body. Once that happens, it just takes a little time. But once they're in that zone, as long as we're being good role models, you can keep them there. So taking something like, chips or something that you're just snacking on, and having vegetable sticks with like a very good dressing would be something, a very simple swap. Instead of having, some yogurt, have some chia pudding, have some avocado chocolate mousse. I have so many amazing swaps that we can give you. Instead of having fruit juice, which is the worst thing you can give your kids ever. Remember I said orange juice before, calorie for calorie, more fructose than soda. That's the last thing you want to give your kids when they're sick to boost their immune system. Yes, there's vitamin C in oranges, but it's loaded with acid. And obviously the sugar content's going to feed the bacteria, make them sicker longer, right? So that's the things we want to avoid. Give them lemon in the water, give them green juice and things like that. So we start with the swaps. So 17 times a day, start to take bad snacks, swap them for healthier snacks. That's the number one step. Now, once you've been eating healthy snacks for a few days, and you do this on your timetable, remember, guys, you fit this into your lifestyle, not the other way around. That's how we win this game, right? So once we're eating healthy now, better snacks, we're feeling good, it's starting to build up energy in our body because that's what these foods do. They fuel your body. And no one ever said, hey, I feel bad after eating a celery stick with some raw almond butter and a little hemp seeds, or I feel bloated after having a green juice. No one ever said that, right? A little green apple slice with some raw nut butter and some cinnamon, right? These are things that you can do. They're healthier swaps. Then what I want you to do is take away some of those snacks that you've been eating. So let's say you're eating breakfast, lunch, and dinner, and you have all those snacks in between. Now they're healthier snacks. Now what we're going to do is reduce the snacks to just one midday, afternoon, one mid-morning. So we have 3 meals now, and we're having a snack here and here. Now, if you still find yourself hungry, there's other ways too. This is something I call cheating the fast when I'm intermittent fasting, what I teach people to do. But this is another thing you can do to suppress your hunger when you're craving something. And remember, let's first stop and ask the question, are we really, really hungry? Many times we might just be dehydrated because thirst and hunger goes to the same part of the brain. So the first thing I have everybody do is drink a big glass of water. All right, that would be neutral. Adding lemon to it would be a better choice. Adding some green powder to that, a dehydrated green powder like our acid-kicking daily greens from Alkaline, something like that would be obviously a better choice. But just make a better choice, right? Let's move that dial towards better. So you can do that. That suppresses hunger. Wait 15 minutes. Go for a brisk walk because motion is emotion. Many times when we're craving sugar, it's also emotional eating. Right? We're maybe not really hungry. We're just craving that carb, that sugar because of what it's doing to the dopamine. So one of my ways to cheat the fast is I'll take a glass of water, a couple tablespoons of chia seeds. I'll add that in. You can even throw a lemon slice in there. Let the chia sit there for 5 minutes to plump up because they're what we call hydrophilic. They expand up to 27 times their size. And then you'll drink that. Mix it up and then you'll drink that. What I love about the chia is they're 50% omega-3 fatty acids, which is going to lower inflammation, which is so important, has a craving effect as well. They're 20% protein, which will satiate you. They're high in minerals like magnesium, which will cut down the cravings. And they're also high in fiber, which is great for the microbiome. So if you have 2 tablespoons, let it sit for 5 minutes, drink that, you're going to find that your energy is going to go up. You're going to suppress the hunger. It's going to satiate you. And then you can go on longer without putting something more stress eating, acidic into the mouth. Okay. So those are little things that you can do to cheat the fast. You can do what I call my belly fat burning shot. You'll get 1 slice of lemon, and then you'll get 1 tablespoon of extra virgin olive oil. You can even do half of a lemon, which I tell people to do. And then you mix the two together. So 1 tablespoon extra virgin olive oil, and then the juice of half of an organic lemon. Juice it, mix it, and then drink that. Right? Again, these are great things to help your body burn fat, to help your body move more into that fat adapted state. And that's the goal, guys. This is about metabolic flexibility. Yes, you're going to lose weight on this. But when I say metabolic flexibility, we are training your body how to move from burning sugar, which is inflammation producing as your primary source of fuel, to burning fat. and the body can choose. If I'm in danger and something bad's happening, I'm in fight or flight. You don't want to be burning fat then. That's when you want to burn sugar. And then what happens? Your body burns the sugar to get you away from that tiger so that you're not lunch for that tiger. But then you want to be able to go back to fat burning mode. But here's the problem. We've had the most stressful year ever. I would say that we have stress eaten the most because when this whole pandemic happened, we were blindsided by it, right? We were all kind of slapped upon by this quarantine. We crawled into our foxholes, and here we are now, practically a year later. Most of us haven't crawled out. We started stress eating. In fact, they gave names to it. They're calling it the quarantine 15, the COVID-19 in regards to the weight that people gain from all the stress eating that they did. And I understand what that time was like. It was crazy. It was just awful for everybody, but we got to flip that magnet, guys, because ultimately, I know it might have comforted you in that short period of time, but it's only making your body sicker, more inflamed, and eventually leading to chronic inflammatory disease. We can't go that route. We got to get this fuel back into the body to make us motivated to be happy, to make us motivated to work, to make us motivated to be healthy for ourselves, number one, but also for our friends and family. So again, it's been a very, very stressful time. And what came along with that was just a lot of unhealthy habits, but now it's time to change that. So back to what I was talking about, if you look at like our cavemen back in the day, when they were stressed, they didn't have this kind of acidic diet. So they would see a saber-toothed tiger, they would run as fast as crazy to get away from it. They climb up a tree, they were burning sugar for fuel. And then what happens? The body started burning fat. But here's the crazy thing. Your body has 5 hormones that's designed to create sugar in your body, to make sugar. You see, sugar it's not a food. It's not an essential nutrient like fat and protein is. You need fat, you need protein. You don't need sugar. There's some nutritionists and doctors out there will say you need sugar. Your brain runs on sugar. No, it doesn't. The brain will burn the sugar off first. Why? Because sugar is so acidic and so inflammatory. It's going to literally corrode your brain and just drive up that inflammation. So when sugar's there, it's going to basically do whatever it can to get it out. So it burns it. But then what happens? You crave it. And that's what Alzheimer's is. They're calling it type 3 diabetes of the brain. It's insulin resistance of the brain. This is how important that is. So again, your body has hormones like cortisol and norepinephrine and adrenaline and growth hormone, all these different hormones that can make sugar if you need it. So if I'm a caveman and there's no sugar in my diet, because they basically lived on feast and famine back then, which is really what we're modeling when we do intermittent fasting. If I didn't have sugar as a caveman and I saw a saber-toothed tiger, guess what? I need to get out of Dodge so I'm not eaten by that tiger. The body can actually make the sugar in an instant like that. Now, while there's 5 hormones that make sugar, there's only one hormone to lower the sugar, and that's something called insulin. Now, insulin's purpose is not even to lower sugar. Right? You hear about insulin a lot with diabetes. Insulin's purpose is a transport hormone. It's to get energy into the cell, and it's to help the cells recover, regenerate, and it does it by replication. So again, the problem with sugar is it dumps insulin into the blood. It makes you store fat, but this replication process, what does it do? It can cause cancer, cause cellular division. And I think this is one of the biggest issues with type 2 diabetes and the drugs, because every single drug they give someone with type 2 diabetes, except for one on the market, they're giving insulin. Now, here's the thing. They put the insulin into the body, which gets the blood sugar number under control. So now my blood sugar reads 80. Hey, Mr. Patient, Mary, you're doing great. Your blood sugar is 80. Keep on this drug and you're going to be okay. But here's the thing. They're not addressing the reason why this whole thing happened in the first place, which was this stress eating diet, the stress that we need to manage better, so on and so forth. So the problem now is that you've gotten this diabetes under control. You're managing the blood sugar, but now with all this extra insulin, you're creating more insulin resistance, which is very, very bad and dangerous. And you're increasing more cellular replication. So now we can trade off that for more likelihood or chances that maybe cancer can happen. I'm not saying that will happen, but that can happen because that's what insulin does. So this is the whole point of all this thing, is that we got to train our bodies to become more metabolic flexible. And that's when your body's in such a healthy state based on your surroundings, what's going on in your lifestyle, your body can choose whether it needs to burn sugar or fat as its primary source of fuel. And hopefully we're only burning the sugar when you're in these fight or flight states. But again, the problem right now with our current situation, as I said before, this is the year that we have stress eating the most, is that we are literally marinating in our cortisol. Cortisol is our stress hormone. When we're stressed, the adrenal glands secrete cortisol. Cortisol goes up. It shuts down your immune system. It shuts down your digestive system because your body doesn't care about digesting or your immunity, or all it cares about is getting out of danger. But we're living in this 24/7, and that's the big problem. We're marinating in our cortisol. We are all being subjected to these constant, chronic, emotional stress levels because of what's out there. So here's what I'm telling everybody. Don't worry about that, or do your best not to. I get we are worrying a little bit, right? But let's control what we can control. And that's the takeaway. If we end up being more stressed about that situation, it's going to cause more of these bad things, more of the stress eating. And that's what the things we want to switch. Okay. All right. So what we want to talk about is how to get you out of that fight or flight. And we're going to do that by the foods that we put into the body. So we talked about going from 17 times a day eating. We're going to flop out or swap out the bad snacks for the good snacks. And now that we have all good snacks, we're going to remove most of those snacks. So now we're eating breakfast, lunch, and dinner. We have a snack mid-morning, snack mid-afternoon. If you're hungry any other time, we talked about what to do. Get a water, add some lemon, add a scoop of greens, add some chia seeds. These are things to cheat the fast. You can do the belly fat burning shot, which you do on an empty stomach. One caveat, if you don't have a gallbladder, please don't do that because you don't have the necessary bile salts to metabolize the fat that's in the olive oil, right? Unless you're taking a specific nutrient like beta TCP, which gives you those bile salts to help you digest fat. Another conversation, right? So we have ways to cheat the hunger, ways to cheat the fast when we get to intermittent fasting. So now we have 2 snacks a day. And what we want to do eventually, depending on your time, it could be 1 day if you're ready, it could be 7 days, whatever works for you, we remove the snacks. Now we're eating breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Look, what a huge change already. From 17 meals a day, now we have 3 meals a day. And here's what's cool about this. That whole gap between breakfast and lunch, guess what? We're not eating, so we're not dumping insulin because there's no sugar. Now that the sugar levels are low, insulin levels are low, now we need energy. The body needs fuel, and it doesn't have the sugar to tap into. Your glycogen stores are basically depleted. And then we go to fat, and this is where the miracle starts to happen, guys. Once we stop burning sugar as the fuel, we start burning fat. Guess what happens? Energy goes up. That's the biggest thing I see. Weight comes down. This is another big thing. And all the other benefits of this type of variation diet start to happen. We'll get into that when we talk about intermittent fasting. We'll talk about something called autophagy, which is how your body cleans itself without eating. Okay, so insulin levels are down. Sugar levels are down, body starts burning fat as your primary source of fuel. That's when you start to become a fat burning machine. And don't fear the fat, guys. Remember, we got to eat fat to burn fat, but they got to be these healthy, premium ketogenic fats. We'll talk about the macros at the end. All right, so now that we're eating breakfast, lunch, and dinner, we're feeling pretty good about that. Our cravings are down. We have ways to cheat that in between if you're hungry. We talked about those. Now we want to start to move more towards this intermittent fasting lifestyle. So what we're going to do, let's say minimum what you guys want to do is you want to have a 12-hour fast. So if I'm done with dinner at 7 o'clock, you don't want to eat breakfast till at least 7 a.m. That gave you 12 hours. But what we want to do now is start to extend that time. So let's say we ate breakfast at 8 o'clock and we eat lunch at, let's say, 12. We want to take 8 o'clock breakfast and move that to 9 o'clock. Again, on your time. You can do this for 1 day. You can do this for 3 days, whatever works for you. And then we'll go from 9 to 10, and then 10 to 11, and then eventually breakfast and lunch merge. Congratulations, everybody. You have now arrived at intermittent fasting, but you did it in a very responsible, effective way on your own time schedule, not based on going from this extreme to this, which is going to be hard because you didn't put these strengthening foods in, you didn't address the cravings and things like that. So it might take you a little bit longer, but trust me, it works. And if you do it, you're going to be much happier because most likely you will sustain this for much longer. And the goal is to make this a lifestyle. This is not a diet. When I say diet, what's the first 3 letters of diet? Die. This is not about starving the body. This is about strengthening the body. Okay. All right. So now we're at intermittent fasting. We're having lunch and dinner. The key thing about intermittent fasting is you want to make sure that you're doing at least like 16-8. So 16 hours in the fasted state, 8 hours in the what we call the feast state. So you can have 2 meals in an 8-hour period. And that's the critical thing. All right. And what happens is as you start to do that, because you're fasting more, and again, you're not hungry because if you're doing this the right way, your body's burning fat. Even when I do a 24-hour fast, I'm never hungry. Why? Because my body's burning fat for fuel. It's not burning sugar. If I was addicted to sugar like I was 20 years ago, then I'd be like, oh my God, I'm dying right now. I need sugar. I need carbs. I go out at 3 o'clock in the morning to a bodega to get something because that's how bad the addiction was. This is not going to happen. You're doing this in a right way. So now metabolically, your body is literally burning fat. And to get to that point of ketosis where your body starts making ketones, I'm not worried about tracking this, guys, right now. But it could take between 2 and 4 weeks on average. But everybody's different, right? We are all bio-individuality. We're all different. So we're doing intermittent fasting. We're eating those 2 meals in an 8-hour window. Now, if you want to do what I call something like a warrior fast, you can start to increase that from doing 8 hours to doing 6 hours. So you just push that lunch a little bit greater now. So now you're eating dinner and lunch within a short window. So now let's say I'm going 18 hours of the fasted zone and 6 hours in that feast zone. Now, because you're fasting longer, you increase something what's called autophagy. Autophagy is incredible. It's a fancy word for meaning your body's eating the bad stuff without eating. In other words, it's cleaning up all those bad cells, damaged cells, oxidized cells, cancer cells, and it's getting them out of the body. And why? Because now you have the energy to do this. That's the key thing. Your body has the energy to deal with it. That's what we call energy diversion. But if I'm eating 17 meals a day and I'm so jacked up on sugar and inflammation, I'm not going to have the energy to get rid of old damaged cells. I'm too busy fighting inflammation. That's the beauty about this whole thing, is that when you eat less, not less often. I'm sorry, when you eat less often, not less, you're going to see that all these things metabolically inside your body, as far as cleaning up your cells, is going to change. Your body's going to make more stem cells. All right. So you don't have to get a $5,000 or $10,000 shot to make stem cells. Your body can make this on its own naturally just from fasting. Your microbiome is going to start to heal. Energy goes up. Inflammation comes down. I mean, sleep gets better. Hormones start to balance. Literally, it's a game changer, guys. So again, you can press that fasting zone. So now you're doing maybe like a 18-hour fast and 20-hour fast. I do that, and maybe I'll do that once a week. All right, so that's the way it works, guys. Hopefully that helps. Here's my schedule. So Sunday, Monday, and Tuesday, I do intermittent fasting 16-8. So again, that's Sunday, Monday, and Tuesday. On Wednesday, I'm doing more of what I call my warrior fast, where I'm spreading that time, where I'm fasting more. It could be 18 hours, it could be 20 hours. Sometimes I'm even doing 24 hours. And then on Thursday and Friday, I'm back to my 16-8 intermittent fasting zone. Saturday is what I call my feast day. Now, it's not a feast day like many people who are eating a lot of sugar now might be thinking. It's a feast day where you're getting more of what I call your fiber-rich, slow-burning carbs. So more quinoa, more wild rice, more purple potatoes, sweet potatoes, butternut squash, no grains, right? Quinoa is not a grain, it's a seed. Wild rice is not a grain, it's a grass. Make sure you're soaking these things to get rid of the anti-nutrients, the saponins, the lectins, and things like that. But again, on that feast day, which I do on a Saturday, by the way, because I'm with the family, right? Eating 3 meals a day. I do that warrior fast on one of my busiest days in the office. Now, it's not an issue for me now because I've been doing this for so long, but in the beginning, if I'm busy, it's a little bit easier, right? So that's kind of my motto right there. So on Saturday, I'll eat 3 meals a day, still no snacking in between. And I'm eating more of those really fiber-rich, slow-burning carbohydrates because, again, we don't want to intermittent fast every day because eventually the body goes into starvation mode. You don't want to do calorie deprivation every day because that's what's going to happen. You'll get great changes in the beginning. Don't get me wrong. But eventually the body's like, hey, when am I going to get the next food? All right, I'm only getting a little bit about, I'm going to start to hold on. It will retain water. It will retain fat. So when we switch it up, again, diet variation, diet timing, I have a whole chapter in the book about this. It's a whole section of one of my 7 steps. It just changes the game. So I'm doing 3 days of intermittent fasting. I'm doing a warrior fast, 2 more days of intermittent fasting, and then a feast day. And then on Sunday, I'm back to it all over again. So you can see how I'm just changing up what I eat, when I eat, how I eat. It's really, really cool. It keeps you on your toes. It keeps your body on the toes. Now, lastly, what I want to talk about is just the macros. So there's 4 major macros. We're going to talk about what we call the acid kicking food plate. So the 4 macros are your greens, it's your healthy fats, it's your clean proteins, and number 4 is your fiber-rich, slow-burning carbs. So if I want to look at my ideal food plate, you want to get 2 to 3 servings every meal of these greens, green juices, green smoothies, green soups, salads, sauteed greens, steamed greens, things like that, right? They're so important. And one step, if I'm going to start with one thing in the new year, guys, and I was going to do one thing only, it's adding a green juice every morning the second I wake up. All right. The green juice changed my life. That and bouncing on a rebounder. Those two things is how I got over my addiction to sugar and my insane cravings in 21 days, which is the system I created in the new book, and dropped over 42 pounds in just under 4 months. That's the power in this, guys. So again, greens, why are they so important? Why is this number one step in my book about remineralizing? Because they're loaded with minerals, especially magnesium. Magnesium is really just critical for the brain, number one neuroprotector of the brain. It's critical for all the enzymes in the body for so many different things. It's the most powerful neutralizer of acid. If you're osteopenic, osteoporosis, you need that. If you're recovering from an intense workout, you need magnesium, right? Plus the other minerals. So again, you want to get 2 to 3 servings of these healthy greens in your body every meal. All right. If I'm looking at what is a serving size, a serving size of raw vegetables would be 1 cup. A serving size of cooked vegetables would be a half of a cup. So 2 to 3 servings, I lean on the 3 serving side. And then we want 1 to 3 servings of healthy fats. 1 serving would be a half of an avocado, which I call God's butter, the most perfect food. Eat them every single day. 1 tablespoon is a serving of oil. So extra virgin olive oil, avocado oil, coconut oil, MCT oil, black seed oil. These are all things that we can drizzle on top of our foods. Extra virgin olive oil and avocado are the one I use most on top of my foods. Raw nuts, things like macadamia nuts, so powerful. Another way to cheat the fast, by the way. Raw almonds, walnuts. You ever notice that the walnut looks like a brain? Helps brain health because of the omega-3 fats, right? The ones I would say be careful of are like cashews and pistachios because they can tend to get moldy. All right. So moderation on those ones. Raw seeds like chia seeds, hemp seeds, flax seeds. And I'm saying raw, guys, because if the nuts and seeds are dry roasted, they become trans fats. They become inflammatory. So please make sure that they're raw. Raw nut butters, things like, coconut butter, cacao butter, almond butter, things like that are really, really good. And what else? All right, I think that's it for the fats. If you want to have like fats like wild caught salmon, those are fats. I'm going to talk about that in the protein in a second. But obviously those are very good sources of animal protein, but make sure that it's wild caught. That's a key thing. All right. Because if it's not wild caught, these fish are being fed with corn and soy, which are inflammatory omega-6 fats. We got to be very, very careful of that. So, all right, we have our greens, 2 to 3 servings. We have our healthy fats. 1 to 3 servings. So we're looking at things like avocados, healthy oils, raw nuts, raw seeds, raw nut butters, things like that. Now we're moving to protein. So when you're looking at your plate, if you're eating animal protein, number one, please make sure it's clean source. I just talked about fish. So things like salmon, trout, herring, anchovies, sardines, great sources of omega-3 fats, which we need. The average person is massively deficient in omega-3s. That's the one asterisk Chelsea has next to her vegan thing is that, and I don't like to define anything, right? So we don't even define her as vegan because you just do what your body needs, right? But she does consume fish oil because literally you got to get those omega-3 fats for the brain and just for inflammation. So that's important. But here's the thing is make sure it's a clean source of protein if it's the fish, and if it's grass-fed, it's good too for your animal protein. So please know your source, got to be pasture raised, grass fed. If not, it's jacked up with GMOs and hormones and antibiotics and those inflammatory omega-6 fats like corn and soy, all increasing inflammation. So you think you might be doing something good for your body by ordering salmon out at a restaurant. If it doesn't say wild caught, I would never order. In fact, I'd rather starve, guys. Please just get a bunch of sides and do things like that. When we're at home, it's a little bit easier to control the types of foods that we're eating. And do your best. It's not about being perfect. All right. There's times where I've ordered it out. Yes. All right. But I'm doing my very, very best. Most of the time I'm not. I'm eating more of just these sides like we're talking about. All right. So it's got to be clean protein. It's got to be grass fed, from a really, really good source, clean source, and no more than 2 to 4 ounces per meal. Again, once you go above 2 to 4 ounces of animal protein, it will turn to sugar and increase the inflammation. So for animal protein, that's going to be the size of your fist. For something like a fish, the size of a checkbook. Okay. And remember, the protein needs to be the sideshow, not the main event. Most of the protein I get in my diet comes from plant-based things like hemp seeds and chia seeds and quinoa and stuff like that. Now, The fourth macro, so we have our greens, we have our healthy fats, we have our clean protein. The fourth macro is going to be our fiber-rich, slow-burning carbs. These are very, very important for the microbiome. I mentioned quinoa before. I mentioned wild rice, purple potatoes, yams, butternut squash, winter squashes, things like that are going to be really good. But here's the one rule I have. Half of a cup per meal, not to exceed 1 cup per day. And fruit goes into that one as well. Okay. So again, if I'm having 2 meals a day, I'm intermittent fasting, I'm okay. Half of a cup each meal. But if I'm eating 3 meals a day, only 2 of those meals can have that half of a cup. All right. So those are my 4 macros. So we got the greens, we got the healthy fats, we have the protein, and we have the fiber-rich, slow-burning carbs. So 2 to 3 servings of greens, 1 to 3 servings of healthy, clean fats, right? Keto fats, 2 to 4 ounces of animal protein, but also remember your plant-based protein counts towards that. So I like to get more of my protein from plant-based sources, and I will have some wild-caught salmon or things like that every so now and then. And then half of a cup per meal of your fiber-rich, slow-burning carbs. And that is what we call a strength-eating, acid-kicking plate. And if you eat that way, it will turn you into a strength-eating, energy-filled, acid-kicking machine where your body's going to be burning fat instead of sugar. You're metabolically flexible, and everything in the body, all those systems are now doing what they're designed to do, which they've healed and are healing, and now they're working efficiently, as opposed to when we're stress eating and it's only stressing your system out more. It's causing all the bad things. But when we flip that from stress eating to strength eating, all those good changes start to happen. So I hope that helps everybody. If you have any questions about that, let me know. And here's the best advice is just start. Say, I'm going to do this one thing. I'm going to take these snacks. I'm going to change it to this snack. I'm going to start with 1 green juice a day. Just put this into action, because that's the key thing. There's so many times that I've done things in the past and I just didn't do it because I didn't put those action steps in place, write them down. So get your plan, know exactly what you're going to do. And if you do that, you will avoid that pitfall of being one of those 92% of people that fail on January 15th. It's not going to happen to us because we are making this a lifestyle, everybody. So that's it. Hope everyone's doing great in this new year, and I'm sending love and appreciation to everybody. And if there's anything I could do to help you, please reach out anytime. All right, everybody, take care.